Welcome to Get Serious. So today I just wanted to share again a more unique DD scenario here. I know I had mentioned last week about a waterfront property we are pursuing in Florida. Very high purchase price, a luxury lot here, but infill again, which has been bane of our existence in many past deals not many, but a few glaring examples of past deals that we've done that did not work out the best because, infill lots, if you mess up on even one piece of the DD, you really only have one type of buyer. So there's no fallback plan to potentially pivot if the core residential usage is disturbed in any kind of form or fashion. So we are always dead set focused on figuring out every last piece of information that we might need to dive into to sort out all of that remaining DD. So in this case, like I mentioned last week, there's a bunch of, or not a bunch of, but rather, at least a single nest of burrowing owls on the property, and just had to sort out, okay, is this, does that permanently affect the buildability? No, it doesn't, but, there's some considerations to keep in mind here. And so my business partner, who's, probably more conservatively minded than even I am. But us two combined when it comes to investment decisions, like it's a pretty dangerous combo. So, especially for high priced properties, he does a full review and opinion on it as well too, and some follow-up questions and things that I hadn't initially considered or not as deeply. And so one of them was just being, okay, kind of climate change risk, the flood risk of this particular island. It's off the coast of Florida. So, especially we know a lot of these weather events, pretty much every single year that passes by, there's like, some crazy severe weather event in some part of the country. That's just become like routine parts of life for us nowadays. And, especially the flood risk and, near the coast, like we have no idea what the potential might be for rising sea levels and, maybe putting Florida mostly or partially on underwater over the next, half century or more. That's a little hard to predict fully out, and that's not really our game as investors. Yeah, we want to be conservative and think about the future here, but we're not speculative either. Like, we we can't predict 5 years in the future, let alone 10, 15, 20 to 50 years. Like, that's just outside of our game here, and we don't expect most buyers to really be considering that as well either. It's going to be outside the lifetime of a lot of these buyers. Like, a lot of folks just aren't thinking that far in the future. And so, we still focus on, okay, what is the core market showing us like right now? That is what we're trying to orient around versus that speculative game. But, nevertheless, even considering climate change and weather risk in an immediate term, like over the coming, I think, right now, fall, isn't that usually like hurricane time? It seems like we haven't gotten many reports of these this year. Maybe it's kind of a weaker hurricane season compared to in years past. But, we want to ensure, okay, like given some of these crazier storms, has this place been hit a bit more? How were services affected? Is it like going to be put completely offline, destroyed houses and so forth? So that's something that is certainly worth considering when we're dealing with land, especially from a residential perspective. And we had just, bought and sold a property where it was that kind of crazy, catastrophic Hurricane Helene that ripped up the eastern coast and the Carolinas, Nashville specifically. we bought a property in South Carolina that was like just missed by that hurricane, and it took down a lot of nearby power lines and other properties. We were kind of spared there. So, but it took like a long time, a couple of weeks, I think, for the title company to come back online and even have service to close the deal for us. So, just being mindful of how quick communities can kind of bounce back in the case of storms here. That's just something that we like to, be more mindful of now. So, I went back to the broker and was like, hey, yeah, can you kind of give us an idea on the climate risk? Again, we're not predicting like 50 years in the future, but just like, hey, how's it handled, recently? And the particular broker we're working with lived on the island between 2007 and 2017. And they had experienced a couple larger storms. I want to say Hurricane Irma passed through that one. And he was like, yeah, it was a pretty big storm, definitely caused some damage, but the island was back up within a week. And he worked or volunteered with the police force on the island, and so was able to, kind of get a firsthand look on how things were getting back up and running. Is like, yeah, this is just, it's a well-organized island here. So, at least from that standpoint, emergency services and kind of the community has the wherewithal to deal with this climate risk. And also the particular property we're looking at is more on the northeast side of the island. So it's more protected from, where storms would typically be coming. I know, sometimes I think there was that big storm that was approaching Tampa. Was it last year, like 2 seasons ago? I forget. It starts to blend together, and it's like, depending on the direction that the hurricane hits, like you can get like some backwash in, like a storm surge from the direction of the winds coming back. And so like, even if you are more inland, if you're in a Bay Area, I think that was like the big concern. It kind of missed Tampa from that side. But that was like kind of worst case scenario, where even folks who are on the west or the east side of the bay, which you would think a bit more protected, we're actually going to be at the highest risk there. So, it's not fully protected, but like comparatively, to properties that are on, the westernmost side or closest to the Gulf and the ocean, it's just, at less risk from the elements. So he's like, yeah, if there's evacuation orders, you should probably obey them. But he's like, hey, if you built a solid house there, like, and based on his experience living there, yeah, you could probably, ride out the storm in most scenarios here. So like, pretty reassuring to hear from that perspective. Again, somebody who lived on the island for 10 some odd years, saw some bigger storms. So that's just, again, something to kind of keep in mind. And he was also like, yeah, just the fact that, the grass is still like solid on that particular plat or parcel, like it's just indicating, yeah, the ocean isn't like overriding the seawall, and like that would disturb the underlying lawn a lot more. So you can, even though it is in like a coastal floodplain area, you can rest assured that, the engineering is solid and it's not like routinely flooding or anything like that. So that's just something else to keep in mind. Again, can't really predict that far in the future for it, but for an immediate marketability risk and, ability to handle some of the, black swan event storms that, seem that aren't really black swan anymore, seem to come up like yearly. We feel better positioned from that perspective. So yeah, there were a couple other questions that were solid there. I'll probably touch on those later, but I just wanted to mention that one. It was like, yeah, something that's not immediately on your DD list here, but is certainly worth checking in on. That again, you can kind of like a lot of this DD, even though like we're so hardcore, sometimes I'll feel like, this just seems so good. Like we can just kind of hand wave it away. It's probably not an issue. But it's like, you know what? No, like it's going to take you, an extra 5 to 10 minute phone call. Just make the call and figure out, ask these questions and try to get a better understanding of the full situation. You're going to rest easier at night, a lot of money on the line. potentially for this deal here at risk. So like don't mess it up. So take that time, ask those extra questions. More than likely, it's not going to come into play, but in case it does, at least you covered that avenue prior to the wire going out. So that's always the most important part. But with that in mind, hopefully that one is helpful. SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs. And $50K purchase price minimum. Land Daily Diligence Facebook group, zero cost review of your land deals, and landpricer.ai. I'm knocking out some more pricing adjustments here today. My engineering team is just flying through UI UX fixes. I'm just getting updates like almost every minute from that. So we are very, very close to launch here. I know you've heard me saying that forever, but there's like virtually nothing left else that we need to do here besides some final polish and accuracy. Also, again, Callan's Bootcamp starts tomorrow, so if you've not signed up, this is your last chance. $97. Again, what's the risk to give that a shot here? Take your business to the next level. Like I just prepped another question for Callan's team and her kind of mastermind group to get some help on how we can just improve our own AI usage. This is like figuring out more of an A-player candidate research side of things, how to leverage AI to do that. So there's always kind of new avenues for, okay, how can I kind of think about this for our own business? So like we are actively working with our community and getting a lot of results. So like it's not just lip service here. If you want to get, concrete results, go ahead, click that link below, sign up. Hope to see you there. With that, subscribe and share. That would help us a lot as we continue to grow. Take care, everybody. Bye.